All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Simply Cyber Live, the Thursday live stream show where I, Jerry Ozier, bring cybersecurity industry professionals on for long form 1 hour talk. It's always all about good times, and today we've got a banger for you. We are being joined by IppSec. Now, IppSec, many of you may know him from his YouTube channel, also named IppSec, and he works at Hack the Box. He does lots of great offensive security related content. He is a wonderful guy, and I've had an opportunity to spend a few minutes speaking to him already, and we've got to have a great conversation. As always, I love the Simply Cyber community and love taking your questions and basically just handing them over to our guests. So if you want to ask IppSec some questions today, if the conversation goes down a path that you want to explore more, drop it in chat. I will do everything in my power to get it in front of him. Also, mods, if you can help me out today in case the questions and the flow starts coming in strong, I would definitely appreciate the assistance with that. So, guys, sit back, relax, and let's go get IppSec. Hello, IppSec. How are you?
Hey, good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. Just put it down, please. Thank you. Yeah, just put it down. That's fine. Sorry, I just had a package delivered by my youngest son. So, IppSec, thank you so much for being here. As always, I want to cover a whole host of topics, but I kind of said it in the intro, but for most people, you are known really for your IppSec YouTube channel and your Hack the Box content creation. You've been doing it for years. I guess like just to kind of dive headfirst right into it, you know, what is it about offensive security content creation that is so motivating to you because you've been doing it for so long? There must be something that really drives you on it.
Yeah, I would say probably like the thing that drives me is I do it as much for me as I do it for everyone else. I wish I could just say I'm selfless and just give it out to everyone because I want the community to be better. But the videos are really just a way for me, number one, to help keep improving my speech. I got into esport casting probably 2012, 2013 timeframe, and I stopped doing video game stuff and I didn't have an outlet to just talk to myself. So I wanted to do that. And it was also a way to social engineer myself into forcing myself to spend time every week learning something. So, like when I was in high school, I never actually went to college,
Hmm.
but I had a blog called Tutorial Ninjas, and we kind of followed the XKCD release pattern where every Monday, Wednesday, Friday we put out a post. It was normally technical, not always, but it always forced me to take something and try to teach myself so I could put something out there. And when I started getting heavily into video games, I found myself stopped learning. So I had, before I got OSCP, there was a big crossroad for me. I had a job offer to either go to Korea to work for GOM TV, which is like an ESPN of video game networks over in Seoul, or I could go and be like a blue team pen tester, purple team position type thing. Um, as stupid as it sounds, I didn't see much money in esports. So I kind of just said, I'm going to put all my focus, try to get OSCP in 1 to 2 months. And if I do get OSCP, I'm going to go down this path and stop playing games. Right.
Hmm.
Um, and after I did that, I was just always challenging myself to do videos so I could always learn new techniques. I found Hack the Box, and I knew if I didn't do videos and didn't have that pressure to keep doing them, I'd probably get off of Hack the Box after 2 to 3 months. I'd just get bored. A
Hmm.
few boxes would frustrate me because I couldn't solve them, and I'd just be like, rage quit, flip the keyboard, and stop it. Right. Um, Obviously, when I have so many people that depend on my Saturday videos and they look forward to it, it's enough peer pressure for me to just stick with it. So that's probably one of the biggest motivation factors is just knowing how much it helps me in the long term.
Yeah, it's really a good point too because personally, I'm not an offensive security person, and if I don't know if you know this, but like I am a dyed in the wool GRC person, which I know is the least sexy thing in cybersecurity, but I am trying to make it socially acceptable. But because of that, I don't really get my hands wicked dirty with popping shells and hacking things. So because of YouTube and Simply Cyber, and I did want to make some of that content. It did force me to, learn and pay attention. And I've done, honeypots and sock labs and all these other things that kind of expanded my experience beyond what you would necessarily get if you were just doing what you had to do. Um, have you found that because of that YouTube, because I try to encourage other people to contribute to the community because I think it helps you professionally in networking, doing blogs or doing YouTubes and stuff like that. I mean, have you found by expanding yourself and holding yourself accountable through that you've built a professional network that has, had some value in some way?
Yeah, I'll go back to like the esport thing. Back when I was a caster, I actually got my first I guess it wasn't my first. I got a pretty big sysadmin role because of my video games. Just someone I played games with worked for the company and they referred me. Since doing YouTube, I no longer have any fear of job security or things like that. And like I said, I don't have any college experience. If you looked at my resume, if you took all my YouTube stuff out, I don't really stand out, right? It's all about just all the networking to get jobs. And that's generally what I always recommend to people. Um, just do write ups, do blog posts, do CTFs, go to conferences, meet people because most companies will have some type of referral bonus.
Hmm.
So if the company if an employee refers someone, they get a bonus. You want to be that referral, and that bypasses all the HR. You get bypassed on a lot of like the certification requirements. If you don't want to do CISP, CEH, if for some reason they still require those, you can easily bypass that if you just get a referral, right? And
Hmm.
as long as the person wants to work with you, chances are they'll refer you, right? It's not about being smart. There's a lot of super intelligent people that I probably wouldn't refer just because I don't work with them, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
A lot about that in this industry where there's just a lot of like arrogance and things like that. You're like, uh, you probably could do the job, but will you make my day to day a happier day? Right. At the end of the day, you want people to be happy working with you. And if people get that vibe from you, they'll happily refer you. Right. And if you're doing ETFs, they know even if you don't have the skill to do the job today, you'll have the skill a month or 2 months from now because you're doing something on your own time. You have that passion to always continue learning.
Yeah, and I've heard it referred to as like the airport layover. Like, would you want to be on a layover with this person at an airport? Like that's kind of like the litmus test, if you will. But I appreciate that, IppSec. It's so true. I teach and at a university, and I'll tell my students. I said like, dude, the valedictorian doesn't like get the best job, right? It's like, you could be middle of the pack, but if you're making connections and networking and demonstrating what you can do, um, you're going to get the job. It's not, we don't live in a meritocracy. And so to go back to your esports gaming, because you said something, you talked about this job in Korea, this crossroads that you encountered, which by the way, what an amazing crossroads, pretty stressful choosing, really two different life, trajectories. When you started that esports gaming channel, right? Did you like you just started it on your own, right? It's not like someone was like, "Hey, we'd love to pay you to start an esports gaming." Did you started it on your own, built it, and then at some point ESPN Korea called you essentially and was like, "Do you want to come over here and do this professionally?"
Uh, yeah. So how that kind of worked out is there was a message board that everyone used called Team Liquid, and that's where like even the professional players would be there, right? It was just the place to do StarCraft, and um, someone I played with called Wolf was looking to start a tournament, and he also followed the Korean scene. And we just kind of wanted to mimic what we saw over there. So we put up I think I put up $75 a week. He put up 25, and we just had $100 weekly cup for anyone to play, right?
Mm.
And then we'd get the replays, cast the finals live together, and it just went from there. And it was really cool because since we were kind of the first ones, um, eventually we saw like a bunch of big names go on. Like I remember, I think I was the first person to ever PayPal someone named Huck money for StarCraft. And
Uh-huh.
he was one of the biggest names in like 10 years ago.
That's awesome, and I'm glad you shared that. But it really demonstrates that you know when we say network and value and stuff like that, like the easy things are like start a blog and stuff like that, but there are other interesting kind of innovative ways, just like your story right there, where you kind of, I guess, take the initiative and stand something up and kind of go for it and watch. Just I think consistency is super key too. You were doing those tournaments every week, right? So
Yeah.
people began to expect them, and you could tell a friend about it, and then it goes up the tree, right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see a couple questions coming in from chat related to this. I have some thoughts on this, but would love your thoughts. Chris Weaver wants to know, um, you know, we talk about networking and referrals and all that. Would you reach out to someone on LinkedIn for a referral? And I know you're relatively new on LinkedIn, Ip, but he is on LinkedIn, so go connect with him. What are your thoughts around kind of asking for a referral at a company where you don't know it, you don't know that person, you're kind of just like, hey, you work there, help me out.
So, I'd really like if you ever checked out his streams. Jason Blankard, I probably butchered his last
Oh
name.
yeah, yeah,
He
Black
works in
Hills.
Black Hills. He made that magazine you were showing me before, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's actually one of the big like reasons I think I got into this field because he was working for Sands at the time and they did a Net Wars in DC and they made it for free. And that's my first CTF was because of them, right? He has a lot of really good LinkedIn tips and just job hunting in general. And I don't know if I would reach out to strangers on LinkedIn. Instead, I would probably pay a little bit of money and go with like LinkedIn AdWords and try to find out if they viewed my resume. And
Hmm.
then after they view my resume, then reach out to them. You can do a lot of scary things with just probably $50 and advertisement with heavily targeting your stuff towards them, right? Look at the area, look at what they want, and kind of do a little bit of cyber stalking. Get your resume in front of them first and see if they reach out. If they don't, then you can reach out and then be like, where do I know this name from? Right. So even if you're a stranger, they probably saw your name on their feed and subconsciously there's something there being like, I should continue this conversation with them because this sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, that's great advice, Ip. I love that. And here I've dropped this link in chat. This is Jason right here, and this is actually a video on how to hunt for jobs like a hacker. And Jason's got several videos. He always posts under the Black Hills YouTube channel, but I dropped a link in chat there so you guys can go check that out. Thanks for the question, Chris, and thanks for the answer, Ip. So I mean, do you find like you just gave that answer and you were clearly using your offensive security skill set, like basically in real life practice. So do you find yourself like hacking all the things, like not just hack the box and ranges, but like hacking like, yeah, I don't know, menus at restaurants or, or like, or processes and stuff like that. Like, do you apply your skills and your talents throughout your life?
I probably do. I can't think of any good examples off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I would say probably there's a lot more times when I fail to apply my skills to real life. I remember, I think it was last year, I had just got like the Flipper Zero,
Hmm.
and I was at a parking garage, and the parking garage ate my parking coupon. And I was stuck for like 45 minutes trying to get a hold of someone because I couldn't get the arm up. So I was like trying to play with the Flipper Zero, try to do some RFID tactic, walking like on the other side of the arm, trying to get it to open up. And I just couldn't get out of the garage until someone came. So I definitely try. I don't know how successful I am at it. There's always more failing than succeeding, I would say.
I love it. I also got a Flipper Zero. I played with it a little bit, but I'm not offensive security focused, so I opened and closed my garage door and called it a day. Um, that is pretty funny. Have you done or do you do like physical uh, security
Yeah,
penetration?
I used to do that.
Okay. Is it I someone asked me this question on stream a couple of weeks ago and I didn't have an answer because I literally have no clue. But two things. One, like if someone wanted to be a physical security pen tester, right? Like would you recommend they go pen testing and like get, network attack all the way through and get kind of the entire arsenal, or is there an actual field, like is there enough of it in the field to have a physical security professional like that's your niche?
I think there's enough of it in the field where you can make that your niche, I would
Hmm.
say. I know probably 7 or 8 people that do it full time, and that's just meeting them just at random cons and things. I've never really hunted other people out.
Hmm.
So
Okay. Well, then I guess you've heard it here first. I'll start telling people that it's legit because I never knew how to answer that because it's not like I don't know like people aren't hanging signs out front that says like physical pen testing like services at large. So
so a lot of it probably helps to start out as a pen tester because a lot of the firms will contract the actual physical stuff out. So you'll have probably small pen testing firms that I think are probably the most successful, like 30 to 50 people companies, and they'll be really good at doing the actual pen testing, right?
mhm.
And that's what their employees like. But their employees don't like doing the physical side of things just because they don't have that knowledge. It's very I wouldn't say it's very hard to get. If you just hang around the right people at conferences, if you look at like conferences Deviant goes to, and people like the information's out there, right?
Mhm.
But there's a lot of people that want to be the keyboard warrior. So you find those companies, you may do a gig with them, you do a success, like you go, hey, I noticed this building uses this type of key card. It's vulnerable to this. You find that through like Google Maps. Like you'd be surprised on what information you can get on physical pen testing just from Google Maps looking at the
Mhm.
building, right? And just being able to identify what the key card readers look like, things of that nature. And then they just call you back to do those type of jobs, right? Or you leave that company, but they bring you on. Tell you to start up your LLC so they can bring you on to do pen testing gigs or physical gigs.
Yeah, like basically do good work and
Yeah,
it'll repeat. Yeah, I see Leonardo. Leonardo's one of your brethren. Full offensive security professional. He's a regular in the community, dropping in about full-time physical pen testing. So, thank you. I'm learning stuff here myself too. I love it. So you've mentioned cons a few times. Great for networking. Great for identifying talents and stuff like that. Do you like Black Hat DEF CON's right around the corner? Do you go to Black Hat DEF CON? Have you had experiences there?
I haven't been to Black Hat since like 2016. Um, Vegas in August is not my idea of a good time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I wish that conference was anywhere else. Like, yeah, the heat's one thing, but Vegas in general isn't my scene. It's definitely not what they make it look like in the commercials, first of all. And then, yeah, I don't know, how your feet feel after you leave Vegas, but they're usually pretty sore from all the walking and stuff like that. So, well, so what cons do you go to, or which cons do you like going to, and why?
um, I generally like going to the smaller like B sides. I would say
Oh,
just
okay.
I don't really have. I go to ShmooCon most of the time. I would say that's probably the largest con I go to.
Mhm.
But I try to find the smaller cons. I don't really go to the cons for like the best talks or things like that. I mainly just go for hanging out with people.
So do you typically try to? So yeah, I do. I would agree that smaller cons, it's much easier to be chill and there's just less going on. I went to Wild West Heckin' Fest last year. It's Black Hills is one up
Yeah,
in Deadwood. If you get a chance, dude, it is undeniably my favorite conference I've ever been to. Like, if you like to go to be with other cyber people and be kind of immersed in that, like, community, but like everybody's got like positive vibrations. Oh my God, Wild West Hackin' Fest is like where you want to go. It's a pain to get to, right? Because John has it in Deadwood, so
yeah.
it's like an hour bus ride from the airport.
But I mean, since it's in the middle of the nowhere, like the airport is very accommodating, and they have a bunch of fun signs, and
Oh yeah,
you
oh
know
yeah,
right out when you get off the plane for that con.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's good. So I don't know if you plan on going, but it's definitely worth checking out. So let's talk a little bit about YouTube and IppSec and hack the box stuff. So if you guys don't know, and I mean this with all the love in my heart, you haven't been paying attention. Like IppSec is all up in YouTube's face, and I'm gonna drop a link to this particular video that I was watching earlier today. This is just so good. IppSec, by the way, he has very few cuts. So like you're watching him just like crank this out live, no big deal. He did this video on attacking password resets with host header injection. And basically, guys, the video shows you, and you could test this on your own. The video shows you how you can basically get like you hit the password reset button, but you can have it when the victim gets the email for the reset, it sends it to you instead of sending it to the victim. And it's pretty brilliant, and it actually looks like it could be in lots of web apps because lots of web apps have this kind of self-service password reset. So, first of all, where do you come up with your ideas for your content?
So that video was actually, I forget what machine it was based off of, but there was a machine where there was host header injection,
Uh huh.
and um, how I did it in the video is very different than how it was intended on the machine. The machine, it was someone actually clicking the link. And I remember from doing phishing a lot of times when you send a phishing engagement out to an email and immediately you get a click and you're like, oh my God, this was quick. This was so much easier than I expected. And you realize that click was a bot, right? So it meant nothing. But when I did it on Hack the Box, I was like, well, I know Office 365 loves clicking links. Is it going to click this link when I do host header injection? And it
Hmm.
does, which then reveals the secret that the website is using to depend on validating they got the email. So um, there's one thing, like I did it in the video, but the video itself I think was like 90 minutes long. So I pretty much just cut that piece out of the video, made it its own, like re-recorded and put
Hmm.
it in a single video, and that did infinitely better than the box video.
Yeah, and I mean, just from like YouTube algorithm perspective, a 90-minute video, unless it's like very specific and there's an audience for it, no one's gonna watch it. YouTube does not look kindly on that, unless it's like a bootleg movie, right? Or right.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was great. A couple things. So for chat, if you go watch it, you'll see this, and I see your questions coming in chat, so we'll ask Ip that question. But a couple things from that particular video that cracked me up. One, IppSec is looking at IP addresses on where the resets are coming from, and he's like, "Oh, that's Azure." He's like, "Oh my god, it's so sad that I know the IP address range of Azure boxes." So obviously, just you're seeing them quite a bit, I assume.
That just comes from, like I said, I did this first when I was fishing.
Uh-huh.
So I always just saw those IPs come in.
Oh, okay. The way you said it, I thought that like you've been doing like you see them
Oh,
every day of the week, like just every single day. You're like, Azure. There you are.
no, probably like for a period of 4 months when I was doing fishing engagements, I saw it every week. It
Oh,
wasn't like a
okay.
daily thing, but you see enough of that range and you're just like, I know what this is.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of like the that 169 IP address that like
Yeah.
Microsoft took. Yeah, yeah. The other thing you said in the video that really like I literally laughed out loud. IppSec pulls up ChatGPT and says, "Well, let me just go to the 21st century version of Stack Overflow here and get some code ripped out of here." So yeah, it was funny because it's right, it's true how quickly ChatGPT can rip up some code. I actually needed to pull some metrics for my YouTube channel, and I just asked ChatGPT to write a YouTube API Python code to do exactly what I wanted. And like 15 seconds later, I was pulling the metrics I needed. So
Yeah.
you are you using it quite a bit for coding?
I use a lot of GitHub Copilot now.
Oh, okay,
I'll
okay.
use ChatGPT occasionally, but like I have Copilot installed in Visual Studio Code, so I don't even have to switch out of my window. Like there'll be a video that goes live Saturday that, for an example,
Hmm.
I'm writing a cross-site scripting payload and I need to grab a cookie. And I can just write a comment that says, grab this cookie name. And then it gives me the JavaScript with regex to grab it out of a um, HTML request. So I'm
Oh
like, I don't
wow.
even have to go to like Stack Overflow to see how to do regex and JavaScript. I just write a comment and then it tells me what I want. And I just hit tab. I'm like, yep, that was easy.
That is really easy. I have not used Copilot. I mean, I've heard of it, but have you run into any guardrails where it's like, oh, that's malicious? Like, we're not letting you write malicious code?
No, not at all.
Okay, so have you experimented? I mean, is it got guardrails in place?
It probably does, but it's not generating whole programs for you. It's doing like the next line. It's more like predictive typing.
Oh, I see.
And
I see. Yeah, yeah,
it doesn't have anything to predict you're writing malware.
yeah. But I mean, I suppose you could, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. B Theo says that Visual Studio. Hold on, bring this up on stream here. Visual Studio Code plus Copilot is hot. Love it. It's so funny. A couple questions coming in from chat. Security Steve wants to know if you ever speak or keynote. So we talked about the cons, but do you speak at them or?
No, I've actually, I don't think I've ever spoken at a con. I have horrible anxiety and social things. I don't like being the center of attention type thing. It's one of the reasons why I almost rarely do webcam type stuff because I like going to cons and just chatting with people and talking about pro labs or something, and them not realizing I'm IppSec and getting their feedback and seeing how long it takes them to realize who I
Mhm.
am and stuff. I just like the candid approach. I think a lot more. And if I was
Well,
like keynoting or speaking at a con, then I wouldn't be able to go undercover, right?
yeah, that would go against that offensive security mind, social engineer mind that you got there. So that makes sense. I get that, and I've got to say, like I'd like to take a moment and say thank you for being on this stream because this is live. This is your webcam's on,
Yeah.
and I know that the community greatly appreciates getting to hear you and learn more about you. But yeah, I genuinely appreciate that you with anxiety and not wanting to speak on webcam that you have graced us today with that. Um, Carrie, regular in the community, wants to ask your thoughts on he wants to get into the tech industry or cyber, and he's relatively new, and he doesn't know if his question mesh with what you're talking about. Matt, hold on, what's the question? Oh, what advice would you give to someone who wants to get in tech or cyber? I guess I missed the beginning part. What advice do you give people?
I would say just get into it. I think the biggest like when I started getting into cyber, like this was like middle school time. There wasn't any way to get in other than the hard way, which is like learning how to program yourself, looking at source code, ripping it off, and like doing it yourself. I mean, there were frack articles that kind of guide you, but YouTube wasn't around.
Hmm.
Google didn't really have much use. I think today there's too much information out there. I see many people struggle trying to get into this, but you talk to them and you're like, you've clearly built like this roadmap for 2 months, but you haven't read a single thing.
Yeah.
Like you have try hack me, you have hack the box, you have OSCP, you have all these things on your roadmap, but what are you doing? Like you're just building something for you to actually try to start doing something instead of just doing it, right? Um, so generally, I just say go to Hack the Box, start with Academy, do starting point. We just put guided mode out on the platform, which lets you go through the easy boxes and it's more question and answer format. So it's not like the black box form. And you're going to struggle, right? Like I've been doing Hack the Box for probably like 5.5 years now, and I still struggle on insane machines.
Hmm.
Like there's probably 4 times a year where I'm just like, I'm not going to do this video. I'm going to quit. I'm done. Like that's a very real part of offensive security. And it sucks, but when you actually accomplish that, when you're like, I was about to give up, but then I did it. And that's
Hmm.
probably one of the best feelings, right? So it's going to be hard starting out, but once you do it for a month, you'll be surprised at like how far you progress. Not going to notice in a day, you're not going to notice in a week, you're probably not going to notice in 2 weeks. At a month time, you'll start realizing I have this mindset, right? It's not going to be a huge improvement. You're not going to get your OSCP in a month, but you start like there is a blog post. I think I call it if you Google like it's okay to use write ups. Um, I detail like how I would go about going on Hack the Box and like how to use my videos as a guide rail, then going to other write ups, and eventually you can remove those guide rails and do it yourself. And that's when like after a month of guide rails, I think you'd be able to start taking them off and being surprised at yourself.
Is this it right here?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to drop this in chat for everybody who is interested in IppSec's blog post here about doing it. 100% agree. A lot of people get overwhelmed by the sheer volume of resources out there, and they're diverging, and they just need to start converging and step into it and get crazy. Um, so I want to talk to you a little bit about Hack the Box, and if you know, and I should have asked you this
Yeah.
before we went live, but like we can defer, we can pass, what you know what I mean, like just for make you comfortable. A couple people are asking. Oh, hold on. Oh, I didn't flag it, but people. All right, so I guess I'll just do this. So CJ asks, "Do you like Hack the Box or Home Labs?" And I guess can you answer this both personally and how a larger community of people trying to get into cybersecurity might benefit?
Yeah. So I would honestly like this is gonna be unbiased. I would prefer Hack the Box.
Hmm.
The whole reason why is the weekly machine. So if you don't know Hack the Box, every single Saturday a new machine gets released, and probably 9 times out of 10 that's community based. And that means someone from the Hack the Box community submitted the machine to us. And then we have what we call the release committee review the machine. So that's me, OXDF, um, Arkanoid, just all the senior people at Hack the Box review the machine, make sure it's realistic. 9 times out of 10, we'll make suggestions to tweak it to make it a bit more realistic. A lot of times, like we'll find people use things like note.txt on a web server to tell people what to do. While that does help people, you don't get the whole like recon aspect. You're getting cheated of a whole skill set that's really going to bite you when you go to do this professionally. And I know it's Hack the Box or Home Lab, and I'm getting there, right?
Hmm.
But because it's community based, that's almost every box is created because someone saw something in the wild. And because they did that, they release, and that's how pen testers or how CTF, like the whole purpose to me of CTFs is a way for me to share things I've done in the real world in a way that doesn't harm my clients, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
if I exploited a Fortune 5, I can't really just say this Fortune 5 was vulnerable to this, they use this technology. I can't like that's a way to get sued, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and
but
not get follow up jobs. Yeah.
but I can like kind of replicate the situation they put me in, put it out on a box and submit it. And that's kind of what CTFs are, right? And then I think it's said in that blog post, but once you solve the box, I only view that as the halfway point.
Hmm.
Like I get root.txt, the platform says I'm done, but there's probably like that I keep digging in the box and figuring out how it's built. Look at the automations put in. Look at what they did to the software. Look at how the software works under the hood. Is there other ways to exploit it? Because most of the time there are. And that's where you start learning, I think, the most is when you solve the challenge. You're like, okay, I have this software in front of me. Let's see how the software actually works, right?
Hmm.
And you can do that with the home lab, but I find it's very hard. It's like trying to start programming, right? Like if you start programming, you don't have exactly something to program. You're going to program a lot of stupid things and you're not going to really progress. As if
Yeah.
I want to learn Python to do X, or I want to do X, I'm going to learn Python to accomplish it. You're going to solve more and learn more Python because of that than I just want to learn Python. I'm going to go create all these random calculations, right?
Yeah, 100%. Especially if like the book that you're reading is like, here, these are variables, these are control loops, these are,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's not applied, and you're not really getting it. So I think that's really interesting. A lot of people are talking about this guided mode, BTHO, and summer camp, and there's some chat in chat.
Yeah.
There's some chat in chat about summer camp. I don't know what that is. Can you, if you want, do you want to tell us a little bit about guided mode or summer camp, or if they're different? I don't know.
So, guided mode is the new question and answer format we did. So, um, typically, like OXDF is the main person that creates most of these questions, and like just like release committee, we have multiple people review and make sure the questions are good.
Hmm.
So Hack the Box has what we call active machines, and there's always going to be 20 active machines. We discourage write-ups, things like that. Once they retire, then we allow write-ups. And if it's an easy box right now, we also enable guided mode.
Hmm.
So it'll just the questions will guide you at the places to look for. So it's kind of like I said, using my videos as guide rails, but instead of my video, it's just questions. So the first question is generally going to be how many ports are listening. And there's going to be like, what is the version of this application installed? What CVE is it? What OAuth top 10. So, like if you don't know exactly if I should go for XSS or cross-site scripting, SQL injection, command injection, you have a question there where you can just type what you think you should go after, and it's going to say, yes, it's vulnerable to SQL injection. Keep going, right?
Yeah.
The Hacker Summer Camp, typically in July, we put out a bunch of easy boxes free to play. So I think there's currently, I want to say 12, it may be 9, but there's 12 boxes. We'll say 10. Go in
Okay.
the middle. We'll say there's 10 easy boxes that are free for anyone to play. You don't need VIP or anything. So you can just go on the platform. Starting point is very easy. Those boxes may be too easy for you. If they are, then you can go over to guided mode, and there's going to be 10 boxes for you to play. And those are handpicked. There's a blog post that talks about it and like has I picked delivery, which is a machine I built. OXDF picked one. Like you can see why we picked boxes. So it's 12. Thank you, Theo.
Yeah.
So it's like 12 of our best easy boxes that are free for anyone to play for probably another week or two.
So is that like I know Try Hack Me
Yeah.
is a competitor, and they do the advent of cyber, which is really a huge everybody looks forward to it every winter, and they kind of unlock a box every day, or a challenge every day. Is this kind of like comparable, or you guys just open the whole thing up? It's open for a month and then you close it.
It's just open. So how Try Hack Me does the questions, guided
Uh-huh.
mode is very similar.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
So, but we don't do one a day or things like that. We just open it up and say, go for it.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so a couple practical questions that I want to ask you, and I thank you, Chris Weaver, for asking this question because I wanted to ask you this question. Okay, like it's very cool that there is an IppSec Nmap scan, right? So I don't know if you know this, but like you have a certain like I think it's -SV-SC IP address or something.
Yeah.
And I think it's what you start with every time you jump on a box. And people call it the IppSec scan. So you probably knew that, but it's wicked cool. Do you use Nmap exclusively? I know Chris is saying Rust. There's a lot of competitor network scanning programs. So like, where does Nmap stand with IppSec?
I don't like Ruscan. There's a lot of people like that try to do things as fast as possible. Um, Nmap it with the right flags can go almost as fast as Ruscan. Like you're talking a 2 to 3% difference, right? The
Hmm.
reason why Nmap doesn't is because you shouldn't. It's like the whole like Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility, right? Um, if you go to a network and did mass scan, Rust scan, and did things at full blast, like there's a very high chance if they have like two old Cisco ASAs doing a site-to-site VPN, you may take down the VPN link with the amount of data you put in. If they have printers, you'll probably knock the printer offline. Like if you do things that fast, you're going to cause outages.
Hmm.
And Nmap's default is relatively safe. Like even Nessus, they have there's a flag in Nessus that's like ignore fragile devices, and like Nessus won't scan printers by default because they're just so like flimsy.
Uh-huh.
So
I love it.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. What about what like so is it with directory searching like Dirbuster, and
Yeah.
I know there's a bunch. Like what's your go-to tool for that kind of need?
It really depends. My go-to is probably going to be GoBuster. I know a lot of people like FarrowBuster
Hmm.
because it does recursion. Um, so recursion is when you're doing a directory scan. Like the whole purpose of Durbusting is so you can find content on a web server. And if something's doing it recursively, it means when it finds a folder, it's going to go in that folder and also go into it, right? And if I'm doing something super long running, I'll probably do FarrowBuster, but I'm not a patient person. And the amount of times a FarrowBuster has natively finished for me is very few, just because it goes into so many different directories like JavaScript and things like that that you should put on exclude. It's more one of those that like you have to watch over while it runs if you want it to be quick.
Hmm.
GoBuster by default doesn't have recursion. It's only 10 threads by default. You can put it to 100, But when I put it to 100, sometimes the web server goes slower and other people get impacted. So I find GoBuster has a lot of just safe defaults, and I like using that.
Okay, well there you go. Thank you, Chris and IppSec. Thanks for that question. Shane has a really great one. When you're approaching a box or a client engagement, what's your methodology for approaching it and finding those vulns?
Um, it's really open ended. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they try to build this like mental flow chart of if I see this, I do this, right?
Hmm.
Um, and maybe this just comes from experience, but like I think flowcharts and that type of like thinking is very like scientific, algorithmic, whatever. And if problems were that easy, then we'd be replaced by computers already, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a reason a lot of pen testers joke about Nessus not finding everything, right? Because finding things is tough. And that just means like it's not easy to make a flowchart to find all the vulnerabilities.
Hmm.
It's really about just seeing things under the hood. So just exploring, seeing what sticks out at you. For those like I credit a lot of my video game playing actually to my pen testing success. So I come from StarCraft, which is a real-time strategy game. If you don't know that, it's like Warcraft. If you don't know that, Age of Empires, Command and Conquer, games like that. You have like it's you versus your opponent. You each build your own little Sim City, build units, and attack each other. Um, and a lot of people think recon in that game is you just send your unit across the map and see what buildings they have. And that's not recon. Like when I played StarCraft, if I crossed your scouting unit, I was like, I'm at this part of the map. I saw your unit at this part. Not only do I know how many units you have in your base because I know which unit you sent out based upon the time, I probably know if you built gas or not. I know what position the map you are. Like 9 times out of 10, I could say all the buildings, like the structure of your base, right?
Yeah.
Um, the recon, it's like reading between the lines. You get in the base, you're not looking for what's there, you're looking for what's missing, right? You're like, it looks like you have these 150 minerals mined, but I don't see it in your base. It must be somewhere else on this map. And that's kind of like pen testing to me, right? Like I see an Apache web server and a um, J session cookie. Oh, they have Tomcat running behind Apache. There's a lot of weird vulnerabilities in this case that you can do with URL parsing in this. Oh, this error message looks slightly different than that one on this password failure. This is now username enumeration. You just find like your spidey sense goes off
Hmm.
and you find something that looks a little bit off and you keep pulling that thread. The real challenge is finding the thread and then knowing when to stop pulling the thread and move on.
And does that just come with experience, you think?
Yeah, so I think that's why I always say always run recon in the background because you can't hack time. Like there's going to be tools like Nmap, GoBuster, things like that that just take a long time to run. And if you're not running those as soon as you can, then you're going to want them those results eventually. And then you're going to be sitting twiddling your thumbs, like waiting 15, 20 minutes when you're like, I should have just done this before I started even poking at this web page, right?
Hmm.
So I typically start a bunch of recon in the background. Then I go poke at things. I pull some threads. I look at the recon, see if it has results, see if there's anything else I should poke at. Go pull those threads. I get really stuck. I start writing my report, documenting things I did. And then typically when I start like documenting things, like, oh, I didn't think about this. It's kind of like the question, like, I can't count the number of times I messaged my friends, like, I'm stuck on this problem. Here's all I did. Like, if you're ever asking a question how I do something, don't just say I'm stuck. You have to go and say, I'm stuck. This is what I did.
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to do. And most of the time, I'm like typing out the question. I hit enter. I'm like, I just solved it myself. Ignore
It,
this. I'm stupid.
it is funny though how either for me personally, like writing something down or typing it, usually writing it down though or saying it out loud, it kind of like it goes through a different part of your brain or you think about it differently, you see it differently, and you can kind of have fresh perspective on it
Yeah.
pretty much. So yeah, no, this is all great, and there's some follow-up questions. I do want to share this with everybody. So IppSec does have his own website, which is brilliant, by the way. Let me share this. And Kim dropped it in chat. I'll drop a link in chat also a little bit later on. But this is IppSec's website, and it looks pretty plain, but it's actually quite powerful. Now, I asked IppSec prior to jumping on if he built this for himself as a resource, and he did. And it's no surprise. So, IppSec, can you kind of just share like what was the impetus of this, and how do you use it on the regular?
So someone built something similar, but they were doing it very manual, and I
Mm-hmm.
was my arrogant self was like, "Oh, I can do this better," right? So Um, I think I was one of the first YouTube channels to put a lot of information in my description. So I have a bunch of timestamps in my videos because most of my videos are 60 to 120 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect people to watch the entire video, but there's a bunch of jumps that you can click to and skip through things. And I was thinking, I was like, well, I don't have to go like manually put what's in each video. I can just write a script to go through all my videos, crawl the description, and now have a table with timestamps of things. And then it became like I wanted to learn JavaScript, and this was a time before ChatGPT. I could probably rewrite this website now with Copilot, and it would be much faster.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it wouldn't because this website itself was I put a lot of challenges in with it. Like there's zero third-party scripts. Like I don't even use jQuery in it. It's all just raw JavaScript. Um, but
Yeah,
you just
it's
search.
yeah, it's awesome. It's like real time feedback too, as you type in it. What do you
Yeah,
want me to
it's a
type in
static
here?
website. It's hosted on GitHub. Like BGP is a fun one that most people don't expect because there was a BGP hijack on a box. You can do like XSS and things like that just to find pretty much anything I'm have on my channel, right?
Dude, what a solid resource. I played with it, but I didn't really understand how to maximize its value. But this is sick, dude. This is cool. So, oh, and you got a stream calendar up here too. Is that a
Yeah,
separate page?
it's a separate page. It's hopefully not active. I think I took the schedule off. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
Are you
when I
stream?
do resume streaming, I have a G calendar that I put my stuff to.
I see. Yeah, well, I mean, so that's an interesting question. So you had mentioned earlier not really being like cam on and anxiety and stuff like that. Just to revisit that, um, I mean, I guess you said go back to live streaming. I mean, is that something you want to do? Is it? I guess let me ask you this: do you want to go back to live streaming, and do you put yourself in positions on purpose? To kind of like lean into that and try to break it, or you're just doing it because that's another way to help the community.
Uh, it'd probably be the latter.
Yeah.
Um, I always want to get to 2 videos a week. I have a hard time finding time or getting motivation to record the second video in the week. So
Right.
if just like I did with my weekly videos, right? I have a deadline of Saturday that I have to finish the video by. Like this Saturday's video, not done yet.
Hmm.
It's probably about 50% done, but I always like I'm recording up until like the last hour and then I put it to YouTube, right? With the 2 videos a week, I don't have that pressure, right? So like I find myself doing a lot and then stopping. I don't have any pressure on it. So if I did a stream, I could always just pretty much stream what I want to do a video on and then cut some clips and upload it to YouTube.
That's true. That is a good use case. I was telling you before, like I love live streaming because it's gonna happen and it's
Yeah.
it's predictable and yeah. Just as a quick throwback to where is it? There was a StarCraft represent. I can't find it right now. I think it was from Paul. Paul said something. I'm sure it'll make sense to you. He said something about wanting to like gear up his Yamamoto's and attack. Is that in StarCraft? Is that some like super weapon or something?
Yeah, it's the final skill of the battle cruiser, which is one of the best units for one race.
Oh, okay, okay. Well then, yeah, that's Paul's. That's using recon, right? I guess like now we know what Paul
Yeah.
likes to run with, and we can target Paul. I love it. A couple more specific around your expertise. Darius wants to know, brand new to all of this, what are 3 tools that you'd recommend, putting in the toolbox first or to pick up and learn?
Um, I'd probably go with technologies. Like I'd probably learn like Python, Um, and then pick a few vulnerabilities just to play with, like SQL injection,
Hmm.
and just learn that. Like the tools are a dime a dozen. There's 10 tools to do everything. Like you could use Burp Suite or you could use Zap. There's other few things there. I can't remember the name, but it doesn't matter what tool you use as long as you're doing something, right?
Hmm.
You can get to point A to point C anyway. You can go A, B, C, you can go A, D, C. There's infinite ways you can get to the end point. So it's not much about the tool as just learning the technology.
Yeah, and the methodology. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do bug bounties at all? Like, is that something you've played with?
No.
Is there like I'm curious. Like, I feel like offensive security people like not that they all do it, but I mean it's like right there in your vein. Is it just something that because you do professional pen testing, like doing bug bounties is like, I don't know, like if you're an accountant and like coming home and doing accounting, like is that why?
Uh, I just don't like, I feel like bug bounties, I don't like writing reports.
Okay,
And
okay. Can't argue
for
that.
a bug bounty, you're essentially writing a report for every single finding and then arguing if it's duplicate, whatever. Like, I find that to be a very frustrating process. Um, so
Yeah.
I'd rather just be more upfront, just be like, here's the time to allocate, give us a final report at the end and call it a day. Like, I don't want to say this is duplicate. I don't want to argue about criticality. I just want to um, find, like, play with the puzzle, tell you what I think of the puzzle, and move on.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I appreciate that perspective because a lot of people say, like, oh, like if you want to be a pen tester, like go do bug bounty. Like you could be a pen tester today. And I've never heard anyone kind of highlight some of the frustrations of that approach and with bug bounty. So that
I,
that
th-
is interesting.
I think the thing a lot of people don't think when they do, and again, this is coming from someone that doesn't do bug bounty. So
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
advice could be wrong. I do not think of them as the same thing. They're both, it's like saying, I'm trying to think of a analogy that wouldn't be that offensive, right? Um,
Okay.
like it's like driving a car is different than racing a car.
Uh-huh.
And it's not to say one is better than the other. They're just different skill sets along the same technology. So
Yeah.
with a bug bounty, if you go really deep into something, there's a high chance it's not going to pay off and you're going to lose that time. Whereas if you spread your net wider, you'll be more guaranteed to make money. So for me, I think bug bounties not as much about going deep and doing the most complicated exploit and looking sexy and like hacking like a porn star. I think it's more along the lines of um, I'm going to identify this one thing. I'm going to attack host header injection today, right?
Hmm.
So I'm going to go pull a bunch of websites, probably get 200 to 300, then going to do some automated recon, getting all the um, logins. I'm going to script something to create a bunch of accounts, and then I'm going to send a bunch of password resets and see what's vulnerable. Like you're trying to find one vulnerability, test 100 things at once, and then go from there. Whereas I think pen testing's more, you just want to dive deep.
Hmm. Yeah, I
So
really appreciate that. I'm literally like mentally documenting what you're saying right now, and I'm going to regurgitate it. I will cite you when someone asks me, but it's really obviously spoken from a lot of experience, and having kind of lived that and understand that. So I really appreciate that. Um, Jesse had a question for you. And I don't know what MITM6 is, maybe man in the middle. Six. I don't know if that's like an app
yeah,
or something, but any tips for running it while on a VPN?
you'll probably have to configure VPN to be a tap adapter. Is my guess you're running into the issue. A lot of the man in the middling. I mean, MIT M6 is like a man in the middle tool, I believe,
Okay, okay.
from THC, the hackers toolkit or something. Um, but they'll probably try and do like like something that is a layer two attack, like ERP spoofing, or IPv6 has like neighbor discovery that goes over link local addresses. And those won't work over a VPN's ton adapter because ton is layer three.
Hmm.
So you're probably just not at the right layer. Um, for most man, like number one, man in the milling, you're probably going to cause an outage if you do it wrong. It's one of the things I stay away from. Number two, you're probably going to have to upload the tools to the box you're like a box on the network and then doing it. Because if you're doing it over VPN, that connection is going to be slow. And like,
Hmm.
especially if you use cable modem or your home network doesn't have an upload speed. So that you're taking that box's like local, which is probably gigabit, and then piping it to internet, which is probably 30 megs. So
Hmm.
you're probably going to create a huge network bandwidth thing if you try to man the middle over VPN. Hopefully
Yeah.
that helped.
Yeah, no, I think that that's brilliant advice. Like set it up on an endpoint that you've already compromised on the other side. I love it. ISEC Tech. This isn't a question. This is just throwing some love at you, IppSec. You're consistently responsive, so the community recognizes you for your consistency and appreciates your contribution. So thanks for
Thanks.
letting us know, SecTech. Um, we talked. Okay, so I have a question, and we're going to
Yeah.
do Chris Weaver's question afterwards. So you just mentioned IPv6. In my world, and I have a computer science background. In my world, IPv6 was like it was like our industry collectively walked up and we're like, we definitely need this. And it was like, that's really no, that's too complicated. We'll just use natting and private IP ranges. We're good here. Do you see like any practical deployments of IPv6 and from an offensive security perspective, is it easy pickings because nobody knows how to engineer the thing?
Um, Occasionally you will find some easy pickings with IPv6 just because people think you can't find addresses.
Hmm.
If you look at like error and lookups, you can find addresses. Some of the companies will be fancy and do vanity addresses, like Facebook is FCBE on their first part of the IP address on IPv6. So
Hmm.
you can identify it. Like it's a lot easier for me to identify a Facebook IPv6 than an IPv4 Microsoft one, just because it has
Yeah.
Facebook in the name, right? But my home network is IPv6. I know there's been a few networks that I've done testing on that's IPv6. And the weird thing is, um, I guess it's security through obscurity because you'll find out how many tools don't work on IPv6. Like you'll get SQL map and just struggle because it's not working.
That's funny. So did you put your home network on IPv6 just to get educated on it?
Yeah, I,
In-
I I did a pen test that had IPv6 and all my tools weren't working. So I went home and converted my house to IPv6 so I could figure out ways around it.
the ultimate home lab. Like right? So earlier today you had mentioned there's no if then this kind of formulaic approach to offensive security. You got to be kind of inquisitive and ask what's not here, understand how things break. Chris Weaver had a follow-up question from that. I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts about checklists? And she says for checking for things that are missing, but I'm just in general checklist, but also for what's missing.
Yeah. Typically, I'll have some type of checklist I go through when I'm done with an engagement just to make sure I hit everything. And that's just like make sure I tested password reset functionality, make sure I uh, just all the typical top 10 OWASP thing. Like it's more, I think, I don't think of it as a checklist of if I'm missing anything. It's more of a checklist for quality assurance of my reports. So typically speaking, for the like most common vulnerabilities, I even if it's a like not finding, I generally like to write why it's not vulnerable, right?
Hmm.
So I can say something like, um, we tested password reset, they have this pin code, we did X, Y, and Z, and it we weren't able to brute force pin codes because it's only 4 attempts. We tried to use some AWS service to get 100 IPs, and it deletes the password reset from the database instead of rate limiting based upon IP.
Hmm.
And just putting some of that data in. And I find that's just very helpful when it comes down to because most of the people want these type of reports so they can hand it to some type of auditor, right? They're
Hmm.
trying to
Yeah.
get some type of compliance. And if you write like the compliance people are going to want to know what was tested. So if you write the top things, the compliance people see your report and they're like, oh, this is how the password reset functionality works. Because if the compliance person talks to whoever they normally talk with, normally like The head of security, they're not going to know that like granular details. They hand the report and like, oh, this report's great. It says everything we need.
Yeah, exactly. And you're bringing up a really interesting point that I want to share with everyone in chat that's really valuable is when you're delivering work or when you're delivering anything really, like think about the recipient and think about what would be valuable to them and then do that, right? So like to IppSec's point, like you could do a pen test and you could be like, oh, we owned you, like blah, like here's this wicked sick exploit, domain admin in a week, I mean in a day, right? But like that's only like what's the value to the recipient of that, right? Like, you know, unless they're just paying it so it's a checkbox, then whatever. But by thinking through where it's going and making it more valuable, you're more likely to get follow on work, right? Like that's
Yeah.
ultimately what I'm trying to say is because you're delivering something that they want to work with you. So, yeah, good on you. That it's just, I feel like a lot of people get so focused on the execution, tactical execution of like right now, this thing right here, and they don't think through the entire life cycle of what this work is, like whatever the work is, pen testing, defensive, like whatever, GRC, like they don't think through the life cycle of who's going to receive it and what value there is to them. So,
Yeah. I think of it more like to go a little bit more in depth, like social engineering. If you just write how you got domain admin, then they're going to patch that and they're going to throw your report away because number one, it makes them look bad. And number two, this it's no longer valuable to them
mhm.
because all the details in it are now irrelevant because it's fixed. So what is the value for them keeping something that makes them look bad? Right? There isn't any. But if your report has all like a bunch of things they did well, then they're going to want to keep that report because when they get asked questions, they're going to refer back and be like, this report didn't make us look bad. And most of the time, that'll happen 8, 9 months after you do the work and they've forgotten about you.
Mhm.
But when they pull your report back up, like, oh, this report made our lives easy. Let's get them again.
Yeah, yeah. There's there you go. So now you're serving multiple audiences. You're serving your future self. You're
Yeah.
serving the client. I love it. We're just a few minutes over time. I don't know if you have a hard stop. There's a couple more questions I'd love to
Yeah. Keep
throw
going.
at you. So Cyber Kiwi wants to ask, missed the beginning of the stream. Just wants to know how long you've been in cyber, and the real question that I pulled it up for is, what do you find most challenging about it right now in your current career?
It's tough to say how long I've been in cyber because I guess professionally, I've been in it, I would think 7 years, but it's been something like I've done since middle school, right?
Mhm.
It's always been a hobby. I want to say I was in one of the local newspapers in like 2006 for hacking Apple TVs and stuff. So, like, it's always been a hobby of mine, but I just didn't pursue it professionally until um, I did Net Wars and B-Sides DC when Jason and Jeff McJunkin made it for free. And that's when I was like, oh, my hobby can actually become a job.
Oh, that is awesome. I just got to meet Jeff McJunkin on he regularly attends Recon InfoSec's Thursday Defensive. Great guy, really nice guy. Um so okay, so what do you find most challenging about it?
Um, it's probably just all the learning curves that's in this field. Like I said before, like probably 4 times a year, I'm just like, I'm not gonna learn this. I wanna give up. And then you learn it and you get over it and you're happy. But um, it's constantly like riding a bike. Like
Mhm.
when you're a kid, you learn like riding a bike is hard, but then you do it and then it becomes easy and you never have to learn it again, which is great. But with InfoSec, um, that comes so frequently. It's all learning curves, right? Like probably for most people here, OSCP sounds like an insurmountable hill. And then once you get through that, like talk to anyone that's trying to do OSCP, they're going to say it's the hardest exam ever. Talk to people right when they pass and they'll be like, I don't know what took me so long because it's just that mental switch has to flip, right? And you pass it and you realize, wow, there's so much more I don't know, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that's so you've touched on two things here that I'd love to dig a little deeper. So one thing you said is you've always been into it, like offensive
Yeah.
security, right? Or like that mindset. Like, what are your thoughts around being kind of naturally? inclined to be able to work in the field versus, you know, just getting into the field and learning the skills and going for it, but not and having more of a conformist mind, perhaps.
Um, I think it all depends. Like, find what motivates you.
Hmm.
Like for me, if I do a CTF, and we talked before, you're the same way. We'll forget to do all things that make us human. That means like eat, sleep, whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We'll start the CTF and then we'll realize, well, like we'll look at the clock, be like, oh, it's only 5 p.m. And we're like, wait, it's 5 p.m. on the 20th. I started on the 19th.
Yeah. Yeah, it's dangerous. Yes, it's not good, but yeah, 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 yeah.
So like if I wasn't passionate and motivated, like I don't know how I would go about it. I try to find what motivates me.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing is that there is a boatload of dimension
Yeah.
to information security. That's another thing I tell people. A lot of people who get into the or try to break in or just starting, they get overwhelmed by the sheer volume because they think that they need to understand like malware analysis and pen testing and sims and you know what I mean. It's like no, no, no. Like you really need to like find what is interesting to you and then do that. And I feel like that's one of the big, um, not mistakes, but one of the big things that is tricks people or trips them up when they first get started. The other thing that you had mentioned, Ip, and you know, I strongly believe this, and I wanted your thoughts. Like, in order to be successful in the field, you have to be a lifelong learner. I
Yeah.
believe that in my heart. And some people who aren't into that, I say, I don't know, like, with all due respect, I don't know if cyber is going to be a good fit for you because,
Yep.
yeah.
I think
So,
the
yeah,
best
go ahead.
advice would be like in everything life, consistency makes perfect, right? Um, and you may not think you have the passion there, but I would recommend like setting aside an hour or 2 hours a day and sticking with it for a month or two and then see where it takes you. Like, um, I don't think anyone like I've never met someone that did the like went to the gym for the first time. Like, man, I really loved going to the gym and lifting and how I feel today, right? Like, I've never met someone that actually liked that. But the people that stick with it and make it a part of their routine, they eventually learn to like it, which maybe that's like some abuse thing. I don't know, but like I think that's the same way with cyber, right? Just pick an hour the first few times, acknowledge that you're going to feel like you're just treading water, even sinking. You're not going to get it, but give it a month, give it 2 months, and then see where you're at.
I love it. I'd love to do a lightning round. So just you know, kind of
Yeah.
quick responses. Because Shane's got a good one, and I deal with this myself from time to time. Do you ever have imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with it if you do?
I do, and the quick easiest answer is try to find something to not think about it. I think imposter syndrome in this field is going to be because you said it's so wide. You're not going to know like there's no way to be an expert in like anything in this field because it's so wide.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the thing people most struggle with is they think people are going to think about them when you're not in their presence.
Hmm.
And once you come to the realization that once you're out of someone's life for a week or two, they're probably not going to think about you that much, right? I'm not sure if you ever watched it, people watch it here, but like the TV show Supernatural, I was recently watching something when one of the main characters did it. A lot of the characters die and come back on that show all the time. And
Uh-huh.
there's a funny question about what death hits you the hardest on the show. And they're like, well, maybe the first few, but we stopped really caring about deaths because it became, I'll see you sometime. And then if I don't see you again, well, I thought I was going to see you. So I didn't really miss you. And now it's been long enough where I'm not even thinking about you anymore. Right.
Yeah, I forgot you were like, oh yeah, you were in season 3. Yeah, I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
So, like, just put yourself out there. Chances, like, if you fail, no one's going to think about it. And except from you. Like, if you stop thinking about it, other people stop thinking about it.
Yeah, you really are your toughest critic, and yeah, absolutely. Uh, uh, Chris had another great. Chris is always dropping like really interesting questions. You know, a lot of people look to you, IppSec, to learn and you know mentor. You mentor at scale through your YouTube channel. Is there people in the industry that you look towards and say like, oh yeah, like that's cool, or I got to follow that?
There's probably way too many people to list.
Okay,
Pretty
Yeah.
much any of the company, Black Hill, Trusted Sec. Like, I'm upset that I'm naming things because I'm gonna forget companies like MD Sec. Like, there's so many people out there. Just
Yeah.
the whole InfoSec community. Like, I look up towards, I'd say, the community, not individuals.
Great answer. I love it. I made a mistake. Um, Jesus, like my first year of YouTube, I made a video on like 10 Twitter accounts that you should follow or something like for InfoSec. And the number of comments I got, not anything about the 10 people, just about how wrong I was that I didn't include. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I just got flamed. I'm like, bro, like there's a lot of people out there. I'm sorry. Like Jesus. So yeah, good answer, Ep. I I appreciate that. Um, so Taekwon Gong wants to know how you maintain motivation, right? He's had starts and stops, and that failure kind of beats him up. Like, how do you stay motivated?
Um, Going back to the gym reference, it's something I've done for so long. Like I said, like probably 5 times so far. I've thought about stopping videos 4 times, but the thing
Hmm.
that always keeps me from stopping is just knowing if I do like take a break, and like that's not to say I don't take vacation or anything, but like when I take vacations, I generally queue up videos just so I know I have this consecutive thing. I know if I break that and I break it multiple times, it's going to be really hard for me to get back in the rhythm. Again, just like going to the gym. If you have some type of schedule where you go 4 days a week, once you get sick and you miss a week, it's going to be really hard to get back into that routine. Um, so, like, I would just say struggle, get it, be very proud that you've done it for so long,
Hmm.
and then use that as a way to will yourself to keep going, right? It's kind of
Yeah,
the same method, like thought pattern. I think like AA has, like where they give you coins for this many days sober, right? Like you don't want to break that streak. You just gotta power through it, I guess.
yeah. Consistency is key, and I think maybe being real with yourself that like not every day is going to be like an
Yeah.
all-star day. Like you're gonna have a shitty day. You're gonna have a crappy day from time to time. Sorry, I don't typically swear um, on stream, but yeah, but being real about that. This is all very insightful. I've had a couple people DM me, Ip, while we've been talking, just really loving your perspective and your insight. So definitely awesome. We're gonna wrap the show up here, but let me Ip. I always give my guests an opportunity to take the floor. But before I do that, I meant to ask you this. Are there any projects you're working on, any upcoming initiatives that people should be looking out for with you and your work?
I don't think so. Like I have an idea that I want to kind of restructure it, like have additional features to IppSec Rocks, which involves doing 2 videos a week. So subscribe to my channel if you eventually maybe I'll be a bit more organized with just general techniques. I've recently put out a lot of videos on Ansible of just how I script my install, so I have all my tools and things like that. So if you ever want to do like DevOps things, I'd recommend that playlist. And um, yeah, just check out ipsec.rocks. And there's also a my contributions page where I try to link everything I do not related to my channel.
All right. Yeah, I just dropped a link in chat to IppSec's YouTube channel. I meant to tell you, I'm assuming that's Mega Man.
Yeah.
I love the Mega Man vibes. I'm a '80s kid myself, so it definitely resonates and brings up some memories. IppSec, I'd love to give you the floor. You got just a moment. You could say whatever you want, tell the chat whatever you want, anything and everything. The floor is yours for final thoughts.
Just thank you everyone for being here. Like, it means a lot to be on this show. And if you want to get into security, I promise you that you are more than capable of doing it. Just make sure you stick like to a schedule and set some small goals. Don't set a goal like I want to get OSCP. Do goals more attainable, more measurable. Like, um, I want to be able to do X number of hack the box machines or try hacking machines, or do it not based upon completion, just do it something you can measure, right? Because if you say, I want to do 1 box a week, it's very easy for you to be consistent and hit that goal. If you just say, I want to do OSCP and you set it for 6 months, it's a pass or fail. And if you fail, it's going to look like you've lost 6 months. So just set small, attainable goals. And I'm sure you'll be surprised where you go from today. And there was something I saw a couple days ago on Twitter that I laughed at. Like the creator of, I want to say Zig, which is like a weird language, a programming language that's got really popular. 15 years ago, there was a Stack Overflow post of him asking how to read a file in C. And after 15 years, he wrote his whole programming language that many people use. So you'd be surprised what you can do in amount of times.
Yeah, just 1% a day, right? Just one.
Yep.
Keep moving forward every single day. That is pretty wild and pretty cool with Zig. All right. So everybody, thank you so much to our guest, IppSec. Dude, this has been like a lot of fun. I genuinely appreciate you taking the time, sharing with us. I know I see chat loving this conversation. I want to thank everybody, the mods, Kimberly and Justin, for fielding me those questions and getting those in there. Chris Weaver with all her questions. Really quick, are you on Threads? I guess Chris wants to know. All right, so we've got no on Threads, Chris. So, but that's fine. IppSec, hopefully, if you had a good experience, maybe we can have you back on in 6 months and talk about your current projects and the 2 videos a week and have another wonderful conversation. All right,
love to be on again. Thank you everyone for joining.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time for the daily cyber threat briefing. I'm Jerry. He's IppSec. Oh, wait, I've got mirrored camera feed here. He's IppSec. Thanks so much for your time. And until next time, stay secure. I hope you enjoyed that content. Keep the cybersecurity train going by connecting with the other Simply Cyber community resources. We have the Discord server that's lively and always keeps the conversation going. You can connect with me directly on LinkedIn. And also every single weekday morning on the Simply Cyber channel, we're doing live daily cyber threat briefings, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, as well as Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We're doing live stream interviews with industry experts, and we produce videos that we push out every Wednesday morning. I'm Jerry from Simply Cyber. I hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you